Imagine you're driving a car you've owned for 20 years. You know exactly how it handles. You know the exact pressure needed on the brake pedal, the specific hum of the engine when it's happy. You don't even look at the dashboard anymore because you feel the car.
Right, muscle memory.
Exactly. But what if the temperature gauge started creeping up just a fraction of a degree every single day? It's so slow, so subtle that you don't feel it. The engine sounds fine. The brakes feel fine. Until suddenly, you're on the side of the highway with steam pouring out from under the hood.
And you're wondering, how did I miss this? I know this car better than anyone.
That is the trap of adrenal insufficiency. Whether you've been diagnosed for 45 minutes or 45 years, we convince ourselves we'll feel the crash coming. But sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the crash, it's the drift.
It's funny you start with that image because today we're talking about something that usually makes people groan. Homework. Specifically, health tracking. But before you tune out because you think, I already know my body, I don't need a diary, you need to hear this. We're doing a deep dive into an article from My Adrenal Life called Why Tracking Matters in Adrenal Insufficiency, no matter how long you've been diagnosed. It's by Rick Dissler, who has written extensively on this, including the book Understanding and Managing Adrenal Insufficiency.
And Jake, this article hits on a tension I see constantly in the chronic illness community. You have the newly diagnosed folks who are terrified and overwhelmed, and then you have the veterans who are confident, but maybe a little complacent.
Complacent's a strong word.
Maybe accustomed is better, but the article makes a bold claim right off the bat. Both groups are right, but both groups are missing something if they aren't tracking. Rick Dissler writes that tracking isn't something you graduate out of. It's a tool that has to evolve because your body is evolving.
So let's break this down. The article mentions two main camps. First, the I was just diagnosed, where do I start group? And second, the I've lived with this for decades, I know my body group. I want to start with the veterans, actually, because if I've had AI for 20 years, I know what low cortisol feels like. I get the flank pain, I get the nausea. Why do I need to write it down?
Because of that car analogy, the article calls it the drift. Adrenal insufficiency isn't static. The way you experienced low cortisol 10 years ago might not be how you experience it today. Our bodies change. We age, our metabolism shifts, we develop other conditions.
Right. The article mentions things like aging, surgery, hormone changes, even weather.
Exactly. Let's look at the physiology for a second. When you have adrenal insufficiency, your body can't produce cortisol in response to stress. You are manually replacing a hormone that dictates your blood pressure, your blood sugar, your inflammation levels, and your sleep-wake cycle. When you've done that for years, you get used to a certain baseline.
You normalize feeling meh.
Precisely. The article points out that long-term patients are often told that if something is wrong, it should be obvious. Like a crisis is always this dramatic, cinematic event where you collapse. But in reality, the signs of needing a dose adjustment can be incredibly subtle. Slower recovery after a routine day, reduced stress tolerance, sleep that doesn't feel restorative.
That list hit me hard when I read it. Increased irritability or tearfulness. How many of us just write that off as, I'm just having a bad week, or work is stressful?
Right? Without tracking, those are just feelings. They are isolated incidents. You think, I'm cranky today. But if you're tracking and you look back at your month, you might see, wait, every day at 3 p.m. for the last 3 weeks, I've been irritable and needed a nap. That's not a personality flaw. That's a pattern. That is data telling you your afternoon coverage is failing.
And that's the context the article talks about, turning I feel off into useful information. It's almost like tracking creates an external hard drive for your body signals, so your brain doesn't have to hold them.
That's a perfect way to put it, and it protects you from what doctors call recall bias. This is huge.
Okay, explain recall bias.
So imagine you have an endocrinology appointment every 6 months. You walk in and the doctor asks, how have you been? If you are having a good day right then, you are statistically likely to say, pretty good. You forget the 3 days last month where you could barely get off the couch because your brain prioritizes the present moment.
Guilty. I've definitely done that. Or the opposite. I'm having a terrible day, so I tell them the last 6 months have been a disaster, which might not be true either.
Exactly. And the article emphasizes that one blood pressure reading in a clinic or one lab draw is just a snapshot. It's a single frame of a movie. Tracking gives the doctor the whole film reel. Rick Dissler writes, tracking is stronger evidence than a one-time office visit. When you can show a doctor, hey, my blood pressure drops to 90/60 every Tuesday after my workout, that is actionable. That is safer decision-making.
It shifts the power dynamic, doesn't it? You're not just a patient complaining, you're a partner presenting evidence.
100%. And for the veterans, there's another layer here. Medical guidance changes. The article mentions that many people were diagnosed decades ago. The advice they got then about dosing, about salt, about stress dosing might be outdated.
Yeah, it mentions new overlaps like dysautonomia or long COVID, things that didn't even exist in the medical lexicon 20 years ago.
Right. So if you're still managing your AI based on a pamphlet you got in 1998, tracking can help you realize, hey, this isn't working anymore. It helps bridge that gap between old guidance and your current reality.
Okay, so that's the argument for the veterans. Don't get cocky, basically. But let's flip to the newly diagnosed. The article says tracking helps shorten the learning curve. When you're new to this, it's terrifying. Every twinge feels like a crisis.
It is. When you are first diagnosed with adrenal insufficiency, you lose your intuition. You don't know if a headache is just a headache, or if it's low sodium, or if you're dying. The signal-to-noise ratio is terrible. Tracking helps you tune that radio.
How so?
By helping you define your own normal. The article lists things like learning how your body responds to different dosing schedules or what stress actually costs you. For a newbie, they might take their meds and think they're done, but then they go for a run or have a fight with their spouse and crash. Tracking helps them connect cause and effect.
So it's less about obsessing over every symptom and more about pattern recognition.
Yes, and this is crucial. The article explicitly says, tracking is not about control, it's about awareness. It's not meant to make you neurotic. It's meant to give you confidence. If you track for 3 months and realize, okay, every time I travel, I need an extra 5 milligrams of hydrocortisone, you stop being afraid of travel. You just plan for it.
That's a huge distinction because I think people hear tracking and they think obsessing. They think of someone staring at their navel all day.
And frankly, some trackers are designed that way. But the My Adrenal Life approach is different. It's flexible. The article notes that there is no single right way. Some people track daily, some weekly, some track symptoms, others focus on function, like could I do the dishes today versus did I feel dizzy?
I liked that part. Tracking should never be a barrier. It should be a bridge. If your tracking system is so complicated you don't do it, it's useless.
Sustainability is key. If you are exhausted from low cortisol, you do not have the energy to fill out a 10-page spreadsheet every night. It has to be practical. The article mentions they have free trackers in their Facebook group files and paid books on Amazon. But the format matters less than the consistency. It's about creating a data set that reflects your real life.
Let's talk about the why a bit deeper. We talked about catching the drift before a crisis, but what about the mental load? The article says tracking builds confidence, not fear. How does writing down that you feel terrible build confidence? That sounds counterintuitive.
Because it validates your reality. A lot of AI patients deal with what we call medical gaslighting or even self-gaslighting. You feel terrible, but you look fine. Your friends say, but you look so healthy. You start to wonder if it's all in your head. When you track and you see the data, low BP, nausea, fatigue, it validates that what you are feeling is physiological, not psychological. It means you respect your experience enough to document it.
That's powerful. Respecting your experience enough to document it. I think we often dismiss our own pain because we don't want to be a burden.
And in adrenal insufficiency, ignoring that pain is dangerous. Unlike some other conditions where you can push through, pushing through low cortisol depletes you further. It's like driving on a flat tire. You can do it for a mile, maybe, but eventually you're going to destroy the rim. Tracking helps you pull over and change the tire before the wheel comes off.
I want to circle back to the medical disclaimer at the end of the article because it's important. We aren't doctors, and neither is the author, Rick Dissler. But the point about presenting evidence to medical teams is something I want to drill down on. How do you actually do that effectively? Because I've walked into a doctor's office with a notebook and had them roll their eyes.
It happens. Doctors are busy and they process information differently. They don't want a diary of your feelings. They want trends. So if you're using the My Adrenal Life trackers or any system, the goal is synthesis. Don't read them 30 days of entries. Say, I've tracked for a month and I noticed that 80% of the time I get dizzy around 11 a.m. That is clinical language. That speaks to dosing timing. Maybe your morning dose is wearing off too fast.
So tracking turns you into a translator. You're translating your lived experience into their medical language.
Exactly. You're bridging the gap. And remember, AI is rare. Depending on where you live, you might be the only Addison's patient your GP sees. You have to be the expert on your own body. The tracker is your credentials.
That's a scary thought, being the expert when you feel like you don't know what you're doing.
It is, but that's why the article ends on such a supportive note. It says, no matter how long you've lived with adrenal insufficiency, your body is still communicating with you. Tracking helps you listen. It's a relationship. You are in a relationship with your body, and like any relationship, communication breaks down if you stop listening.
So if you're listening to this and you haven't tracked in years, or you just got diagnosed and you're overwhelmed, start small.
Start small. Don't try to track everything. Pick the big three: energy, nausea, dizziness, or maybe sleep. Just do that for 2 weeks. See what you find. You might be surprised that your good days actually have a pattern, and your bad days have a trigger you never noticed.
And check out the resources. The article mentions Rick Dissler's book, Understanding and Managing Adrenal Insufficiency, and the website myadrenallife.com. We'll link those. It's good to know there are tools out there designed specifically for this, not just generic symptom trackers.
Right, because tracking high blood pressure is different than tracking low cortisol. You need the nuance. You need to track stress dosing, salt intake, things that don't matter to a normal, healthy person.
This has been a really helpful reframing for me. I think I've been in that I know my body camp for too long, and maybe I've been missing some drifts. It's easy to get arrogant about your own suffering, isn't it? To think you've mastered it.
It's a survival mechanism. We want to feel in control of something that is inherently uncontrollable. But true control comes from clarity, and clarity comes from data.
Well said. We're going to wrap it up there. If you know someone navigating adrenal insufficiency, whether they're a veteran or a newbie, send them this episode. Sometimes we all need a reminder that our bodies are changing, and it's okay to need new tools to keep up.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Until next time, keep listening.